Hello my dear friends and welcome to my channel. My name is Rainer, this is Rainier Books. It is time for another single review today, and today it is about a book that I finished about 10 days ago. Probably this is about Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. Let's do this. First I got myself born. A decent crowd was on hand to watch, and they've always given me that much. The worst of the job was up to me, my mother being, let's just say, out of it. On any other day, they'd have seen her outside on the deck of her trailer home, good neighbors taking notice, pestering the tit of trouble as they will. All through the dark-breathed air of late summer and fall, cast an eye up the mountain, and there she'd be, little bleach blonde, smoking her Pall Malls, hanging on that railing like she's captain of her ship up there, and now might be the hour it's going down. This is an 18-year-old girl we're discussing, all on her own, and as pregnant as it gets. The day she failed to show, it fell to Nance Peggott to go bang on the door, barge inside, and to find her passed out on the bathroom floor with her junk all over the place, and me already coming out. A slick, fish-colored hostage picking up grit from the vinyl tile, warming and shoving around because I'm still inside the sack that babies float in, pre-real life. Mr. Peggott was outside idling his truck, headed for evening service, probably thinking about how much of his life he'd spent waiting on women. His wife would have told him the Jesusing could hold on a minute. First she needed to go see if the little pregnant gal had got herself liquored up again. Mrs. Peggott, being a lady that doesn't beat around the bushes and if need be will tell Christ Jesus to sit tight and keep his pretty hair on. She came back out yelling for him to call 911 because a poor child is in the bathroom trying to punch himself out of a bag. That's the way this novel starts, Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. She is a 60-year-old author from rural Kentucky, grew up in rural Kentucky, lived a couple of years in Congo, studied biology. Demon Copperhead is her 9th novel already. She has also written a couple of non-fiction books. One I think is called Animal, Vegetable, and something else. And this book has sort of changed behavior for many people in the United States who try to buy local, because that's what the purpose of the book was, to try to bring people to buy more local. So you could say that Barbara Kingsolver, through all her life and all her writing, has been not only a beautiful writer, but also an activist. And she has told the story, actually, how she got the idea to write this book, Demon Copperhead, that was published last year, that is non-listed and nominated for the Women's Prize, and might be the second Women's Prize that she's grabbing, that she's getting a hold on, because she won the Women's Prize earlier for her novel, The Lacuna, a couple of years ago. And that book is called Animal, Vegetable, Miracle, A Year of Food Life, where the Kingsolver family really tried and succeeded in buying local for a whole year, with a few exceptions like for coffee and something else. So Barbara Kingsolver is a very successful author. All of her 9 novels have been on the New York Times bestseller list. So she signs a lot of books, she sells a lot of books, and she said that when she goes on tour, on a book tour in the United States, after that she will have to go on a book tour through the United Kingdom. And she was in the United Kingdom, and she had a weekend off. Her husband came in, flying in from the US, and she went to a place, they booked themselves in a bed and breakfast in a place called Broadstairs in Kent, about 1.5 hours or 2 hours away from London. And Broadstairs and the Bleak House, the bed and breakfast where they booked themselves in, was the house where Charles Dickens was living in the 19th century. And Kingsolver at night sat at the desk where Dickens has written his novel David Copperfield, many years ago. And that's when the idea came to her, and the first ideas came, my next novel will be an adaptation, will be a remake, if you want, of David Copperfield, and Demon Copperhead, the idea of Demon Copperhead, was born. Kingsolver lives in Appalachia, in a region that many Americans look down upon, and because of its poverty, because of people voting exceptionally a lot for Donald Trump, for example, in in the 2016, but also probably in the last election. So many people have not the highest sort of reception of Appalachia. And to write about Appalachia is something for an Appalachian, and that's where Barbara Kingsolver lives. And she decided to write a novel that is close to David Copperfield, the classical Charles Dickens novel of the 19th century, which you don't have to read. I haven't read it myself, so you don't have to read it in order to sort of enjoy and read Demon Copperhead, but if you can, you should absolutely do it, or if you have, you will see a lot of parallels between David Copperfield and Demon Copperhead. This novel has 64 chapters. 64 chapters has also David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. There are a lot of names in the Dickens novel are coming back here. A lot of ways that David Copperfield, paths that he's taking in his life will come back, but in a modern setting, not in an English setting of the 19th century, and an American setting of the 21st century. And American poverty, and not at least to speak about the ground zero of the opioid crisis that it has affected so many people. I did a review about Patrick Radden-Keefe's nonfiction book, The Empire of Pain, a couple of weeks ago on my channel. You can find it down in the show notes here. Ground zero of the American opioid crisis are the states of Virginia, Lee County, where this novel is playing out, and also the state of Ohio, the state of Kentucky. So this novel is about poverty, and it's from a survivor, and that's the solace we get already from the very first sentence of this book, which is actually dedicated as a dedication, and is dedicated for the survivors. And chapter 1 starts with, you have heard that before, "First I got myself born." And with that sentence, we know that Demon Copperhead is going to survive, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to tell us his story. So Demon Copperhead is a survivor. He tells his story that many people in the story do not survive because they die for different reasons, where people usually don't have to die, but they die of addiction, they die of by accident. So this is a very sad novel in one way. On the other hand, there are so many characters in this book that are giving us some hope. In the blurb of the book it says, "In the southern Appalachian Mountains of Virginia, poverty isn't an idea, it's as natural as the grass grows. For a generation growing up in this world, at the heart of the modern opioid crisis, addiction isn't an abstraction, it's neighbors, parents and friends. Family could mean love or reluctant foster care. For Demon, born on the wrong side of luck, the affection and safety he craves is as remote as the ocean he dreams of seeing one day. The wonder is in how far he's willing to travel to try and get there." And this is really a story of a lot of bad things that many characters in this book are going through. His first love is to a girl that is horribly addicted to heroin, that shoots drugs into her veins at the age of 16 or 17 already. His mother will not survive many pages of this book. This is not a spoiler because it happens quite in the early stages of the book, that he becomes an orphan, that he's all alone in this world. His father has died many years ago in something called the Devil's Bathtub in Kentucky. And Demon is going to go there later in this novel. There's so much pressure in this world, so much hopelessness in a way that sometimes it feels to succumb everything good. And Demon is just trying to survive. That's his daily job, you know. That's our daily job. If you live in Appalachia, it's almost your daily job to try to survive, to try to make it to another day. And this area, Barbara Kingsolver was asked if she doesn't sort of portrays her character sometimes, and like maybe in this novel, as in a zoo, that like sort of people in New York or San Francisco or Los Angeles or Portland or Seattle look at the people in Lee County in Virginia and think of it as a zoo. Look at those poor people. And Barbara Kingsolver answered this question very wisely and very beautifully in saying, well, if I read a book about New York, I feel the same. I look at these people in Manhattan and I say, how much money do they spend on shoes? You know, it's different from the perspective and reading, and that's also a message of Kingsolver in this book, but also from the writer herself, reading gives us new perspectives. Reading shows us different lives. We want to read about different lives. And if we read about different lives and learn about different cultures and different surroundings where people live in, we might get more empathy. Reading about other worlds, about other characters, about situations of poverty like this in Appalachia might give us hope, might give us as much empathy as we need in order to save the world. So go on reading. I thought sometimes this book was a bit long, 500-ish pages. I think it has 550, something like that. But then, nevertheless, don't forget that this is a remake, that Barbara Kingsolver has used Dickens's novel David Copperfield to give her the pace, 64 chapters, to give her the length, roughly 500 something pages, to give her characters that she then transported into the world of the 21st century and into the United States from the UK. And it gave her the rhythm and a part of the voice. She had to change that voice, of course, a lot from David Copperfield to Demon Copperhead, because this is the voice of a boy from the 21st century growing up with football, with drugs and stuff like that. But it has a lot of similarities. It is a standalone book. It is a great book. It's super powerful. The voice is so strong. The language, I warned for a lot of F words, for a lot of SH words, and other words in this book, because it is the language of a 19-year-old boy from Appalachia, right? It's not from Harvard directly. But this book is really an example what you can do with literature to show you a different place that you might never travel to give you an insight of how it is to live there for people. It tells us a lot about the human condition, which is the basic thing about literature. And probably I have to read more about Barbara Kingsolver. I'm going to take a close look at her work now, because she's an author with a lot of humanity, with a lot of action, and a very political author. It's sometimes funny that people say, even here on BookTube, this, we don't talk about politics. Well, this is also a very political novel. Demon Copperhead is not a work only of fiction to show us the life of somebody living in Appalachia, where half of his people die of the opioid crisis and of overdoses because society sort of has forgotten them and doesn't care about them. New York and Los Angeles don't care about Appalachia, right? And Washington, D.C. This is a very political novel because this cries for change. This cries for the empathy of us, of all of us, to sort of enable people who live in those depraved, poor counties like Lee County, Virginia, to live a different life, to get a better education. And for this to achieve, we need to change things. And in that meaning, of course, Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver is a very and highly political novel as well. But it's a great work of art, a great work of literature, and you absolutely have to read this. I listened to most of the book. I read a couple of chapters, but I listened to most of the book, read by Charlie Thurston, a great narrator of this novel. It takes about 25 hours or something to listen to the book. Read it, listen to it, but do this, and I see you very soon in another edition of I've Read Something. Thank you very much. Bye.